Hey everybody, happy Monday. Welcome to Tech Time with Tammy. Today's is going to be based on safety. So that's the topic that we're going to discuss today. And it's going to be your safety with everything that you are around, whether that's your respirator, your gloves, covering your eyes, covering your skin, wearing suits. That's what we're going to dive into today. It was a topic that was recommended to me basically just based on respirators, and then I thought about it and realized this needs to be taken a step further. I want to clarify some things, talk about a couple things that I realized after doing some research that are actually myths, maybe a little bit better for you in the end than what you have been told or thought, or even what I had thought, but always, still things that you need to take care of. Now, for instance, if you paint every single day for a living, no question, you should be using fresh air. I understand that a lot of people can't afford it, and a lot of people do not have it. That said, your life is worth it, and your health long-term is worth it, because what will happen is you will be around the solvents and the chemicals and the resins so much over the course of your career in this, that one day you will go around those chemicals and you will instantly react to them. And you'll get to a point that anytime you get near those solvents or any of those chemicals, it will set you off and make you terribly sick. I can't tell you how many people I know in this industry that have painted for a living, did not prioritize their health, did not prioritize wearing any safety stuff, and now pay for it and cannot paint at all and have had to change careers, and or only can paint and only be in a booth if they're fully covered from head to toe with no possibility of solvent touching them. Now, the truth is that is how you should paint no matter. That is the truth. You should always be protecting every single part of your skin or anywhere that can absorb chemicals, because that is what's going to protect your health. Realize that everything in this industry, whether it's solvent or water, is not healthy. Don't think that water is better for you than solvent. Yes, there are less harmful things about water-based than solvent, but it's full of chemicals, it's full of formaldehyde, it's full of all kinds of things as well to get that water to evaporate and to dissipate. So it's not just water, so realize that. So this is going to go for you if you're doing solvent or water. Realize solvent is worse in that aspect, but anything that gets sprayed into the air and can be inhaled in, no matter what it is not going to be healthy for you. So let's talk about respirators first. Many people are using the standard vapor cartridge, disposable 3M, like 7192 for medium or 7193 for large, and that's what most people are using. Realize that those are only set to be being used for 40 hours of continuous use. That means if you paint for a living and that is the respirator you're wearing, you need to be tossing it every Friday. If you're somebody who paints only on the weekends, let's just say you paint for 5 hours every weekend over the course of the weekend, then you're going to be using up that respirator's full ability to keep you safe within 6 to 8 weeks if you're storing it and using it only on the weekends. So you could, save your respirator over the course of those weeks and just, make sure you keep it in a bag that it comes with, and then that helps keep it sealed and protected. Now, something that was mentioned to me, which is a very good point that I had not thought about. When you buy the respirators and they give you the bag to put them in, which they do give you a reusable bag to stick it in there to keep contaminants from being able to get in it and further ruining it faster, is the fact that people leave the very front filters on. Well, those are the filters that are exposed to the most chemicals. They're the ones that are absorbing in all of the solvents, all the isocyanates, all of the overspray, and you're just taking that respirator and you're throwing it back into the bag, and it's just kind of sitting there mixing with all of those chemicals, and that's actually really bad. And I never thought about it, and that's something that was said to me, and I was like, you know what? I never thought about that. Most people just throw the respirator in the bag, if they even do that, if we're being honest, and they don't remove those pre-filters or those cartridges off the front. You need to do that. That was a very good pro tip. Make sure you take them off before you stick them in the bag. You could stick those in a separate Ziploc bag or something if you want to, which you should do, but definitely do not store them with the respirator. That was a very good pro tip that somebody gave me, and I'm passing it along to you. So realize you need to store them in a bag. You need to keep the filters from the front completely separate from where you store it, and you need to be getting rid of it after 40 hours of continuous use. A lot of people don't know that. I'm talking about chuck it. Your life is absolutely worth chucking it every week if you're painting every week, or even if you're wondering how old your respirator is and you don't even know, or how long you've worn it, toss it, get a new one. They're cheap enough to do that. And you don't just have to get the 3M ones. We even have the SAS versions on our website. There's so many options that you can get now that you should be using. Never use like one of those N95 ones, the dust mask. Do not use that when you're painting, period. That is simply meant for like when you're doing body work and you're sanding and you don't want to breathe in any of the dust particles. That is what you should use in that case. But do not use those for painting. They are not sufficient to keep you from any form of any of the chemicals. They have no cartridge. They have no carbon. They have nothing to keep you protected in that aspect, to keep the actual chemicals from going into your lungs. Now, there is a difference between absorption and penetration whenever it comes to solvents and things that go into your skin. So something that has been said for a long time is that any kind of chemical that goes onto your skin absorbs into your bloodstream in 30 seconds. I have always believed that. I thought that that was true. That is actually a myth. Because of the absorption versus the penetration of your dermal layer, it actually affects you differently. And different chemicals penetrate into your skin or into your bloodstream at different rates. So solvents are going to be faster than something like just getting paint on you. Paint's going to be harder for you to absorb in through the dermal layer than just straight solvent. So if you're washing your hands with lacquer thinner, which so many guys do, I am terrible. I wash my hands on a regular basis off and on with just some reducer, and I don't wash them. I think that's a bad way to say it. I take a rag and I use it and I clean it off, and I always have, gel on my nails, so no solvent affects that, just cleans off, no paint sticks, and it's terrible. Do not do it. Wear gloves. Always do everything to protect your skin. When you're painting, wear a full suit. Your eyes are mucous membrane layers. Around your eyes, a mucous membrane. That means it absorbs in everything. Everything. No different than if you were doing it through your skin. Realize that your lungs have tons and tons of blood vessels inside that absorb. Anytime you breathe in those chemicals into your lungs, when they go into the air and they're dispersed like that, and it's when it becomes atomized, it becomes way worse for it to go into your lungs and into your blood. So if you're just smelling the fumes, which are not good for you, but if you're just smelling it, it is completely different than when it becomes atomized in the air. It makes it that much more available for your lungs to just break it into their cells, into your bloodstream at that pace. Things that go into your lungs do penetrate your bloodstream way faster than it does your skin. So realize your lungs are one of the most crucial things you need to protect. You need to make sure that you're doing everything possible to keep that protected. Cover your eyes, cover your skin, cover your hands. Do all of those things when you're painting. If you're not at least wearing fresh air, do all of those things. It doesn't matter how ridiculous you look. It doesn't matter if you think that it's obnoxious. It is your health. It is things that you should be doing just to keep yourself safe. Especially if you do this for a career, you will get to a point where you're no longer able to do this as a career. 100% you will get to a point where you cannot do this when you get that much of this solvent into your body. Now realize there's different things that it affects. When painters go and get blood work done and they get different tests done, their liver and their kidneys can actually make them look like they're alcoholics. I bet a lot of you guys didn't realize that. But all that solvent goes into your system and it actually triggers in your blood that doesn't know the difference when they're doing tests. And a lot of painters will actually be triggered and look like they're alcoholics because of how much solvent is in their body. So definitely do things to keep yourself protected. So we talked about the respirators and things like that. We talked about absorption. So the best thing you can do for yourself is toss your masks if you don't know how old they are. Constantly get new ones every single week. Constantly get new ones. If you can afford a fresh air system, it's something you should be looking into and investing in. There's much more affordable options now that you can find. If it's something that you have to figure out how to finance, if it's something you have to figure out how to make like Klarna or Afterpay payments on, do whatever you can do to get yourself one of these systems if you're somebody who paints all the time. If you're somebody who paints every single weekend, I still think it's something that you should be investing in because your health should be your priority. You're going to get to a point where you can't do this or you can't afford what's going to happen to you based off of you doing this as a career or a hobby or whatever it may be. So your health should be something that you put way above, especially when you're painting for other people. You know what I mean? Like if you're painting for yourself, okay, well, you're taking the risks. But when you're painting for other people, you need to absolutely prioritize your health and everything that's going to keep you safe, to keep you alive and around for your own family and everything else. So make sure that's something that you take into consideration. I think that's going to handle everything I want to talk about today. Again, make sure you're getting gloves, masks, head coverings. You need to cover your head. You need to cover your hair. You need to cover everything. You need to make sure that as little of your body skin can be absorbed to anything. It's a very important topic. Okay, any more questions? You can go to revoltaautopaint.com. You can see what we have. You can reach us through the contact page, and you can continue to submit questions for Tech Time with Tammy. Take care, guys, and we'll have another one for you tomorrow.